So I've ranked the Doctor being emotional. Now it's time for me to rank him being a badass. Hello everybody, my name is Kevin, I am a geek, you are watching Kevin the Geek, and it is time for another Doctor Who ranking video. Now, at the start of May, I did a video where I ranked the most emotional Doctor Who speeches. Now, for May, I asked you to choose what ranking video you would like me to do. You chose Doctor Who speeches, but I didn't really specify what. And I realised as I was going through it, there were way too many to put in a single list. So I decided to create two lists. One for the most emotional speeches, and for this video, I'm doing the most badass speeches. Now, I also said in that first video that if you guys were able to help me get to 250 subscribers and 50 likes on the video, then I would release the video early. Now, at the time of recording, I don't know whether this is going out as scheduled at the start of June or if it's coming out earlier. If it is coming out earlier, a massive thank you for everyone helping me to get to 250 subscribers. Something that I never believed would happen only a few months ago. So thank you so much. Regardless, if you are new to my channel, please do like the video, subscribe and turn on notifications, and please drop your comments down below. So that's enough wiffle waffle. Time for me to rank the best Doctor Who badass speeches.
The man that stops the monsters.
So Peter Capaldi featured quite heavily on the first ranking list for the most emotional speeches. This is his only entry in badass speeches, and I think it was just that they were either not written enough for him or there just weren't enough kind of speeches where he was a bit of a badass. And, you know, Peter Capaldi was good with this speech, but I felt he's just so much better with the emotional stuff. I feel he's got a bit more oomph to him with those. And I love Peter Capaldi, and I love his commitment to the role and what he does. But for the badass speeches, yeah, only just scraping in the top 10 for this one.
I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below. You got a problem with that?
Now, most people would probably expect this one to be on the list at some point because it's just a memorable, badass moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be a speech, it's just a badass moment. And yeah, okay, it's very short, but you know what? It's just memorable, and for good reasons. And I think it was the first kind of turning point where probably led to the culmination with the whole thing with like the Good Man Goes to War and the River Song kind of saga, sort of around about series 6 of Doctor Who. This was probably the start of that movement where the Doctor almost kind of got a bit too big for his boots a little bit, and there may be some of those other stuff coming up later down the line. But yeah, this was the one that started it off, and I love it. So that's why it's here at number 9.
Colonel Manson, I want you to tell your men to run away.
What?
Those words, run away. I want you to be famous for those exact words.
Now, I just mentioned that the last one was the first one that kind of kickstarted it. This is the one that probably kind of brought the Doctor back to, you know, try not to show off quite so much. But this speech here, again, incredibly memorable. Probably memorable for the most angry I think that we've seen the Doctor post, I would say, Christopher Eccleston. I mean, David Tennant got angry, but this is really angry. You know, to the level that he's to when Christopher Eccleston was shouting at the Daleks. But yeah, some people don't like it for how deep the Doctor goes. But no, for me, he's a badass in this bit. I liked it.
Listen, you lot, you're all whizzing about. It's really very distracting. Could you all just stay still a minute? Because I am talking!
Another one here for Matt Smith, and you'll probably spot a trend that Matt Smith comes up the most on this list. I don't know what it is, but Stephen Moffat really seemed to like to give Matt Smith some real, kind of really strong speeches. And obviously he had it, you know, if you saw my last video, you'll see at least a couple on there. One in particular that most people do remember very fondly. And there's just something about the way that Matt Smith delivers monologues and really big speeches. He just has this oomph. I think he's kind of the opposite of Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi is better at the emotional stuff. I think Matt Smith is probably better at the more badass stuff. Doesn't mean that one's necessarily better than the other. It's just, I think that Matt Smith has got more badass moments.
Yes, because there are laws. There are laws of time. Once upon a time, there were people in charge of those laws, but they died. They all died.
Now, I did say there was a bit of a theme running here about the whole kind of Doctor getting a bit too big for his breeches. And this was the biggest moment for 10. And, you know, The Waters of Mars, yes, it's a very much a Marmite episode. There's a lot of people that love it, but there's also a lot of people that hate it. And I think some people that hate it, it's kind of because of this and the way that the Doctor kind of goes off the handle a little bit. And I am in agreement that I do feel that it was pushed a little bit longer than necessary. But I do feel that this speech is more deserving of a place on either of these two lists than the one that I know is a contentious one for not having included it in the first video. The one where Ten gets very emotional when Wilf is trapped in the, you know, the immortality gate thing in the end of time. This one, I just feel is just more deserving of the way that the character has been written, and you've kind of seen it in this series as well, in the series 4 with the Silence of the Library two-parter, when the Doctor says to the Vashta Nerada near the end,
I'm the Doctor, and you're in the biggest library in the universe. Look me up.
it was very close to trying to decide between those two speeches there. But this one I just feel has a little bit more emotion behind it, which makes the Doctor a little bit more of a badass. And that's why, realistically, they both would have gone in this spot, and it was a toss-up deciding which one to go for, realistically, because they were so similar to each other.
Please desist from striking me. I am your soldier.
And I am yours!
Now, the Doctor always has big moments with the Daleks. It's inevitable. They're his biggest enemy. And similarly to the Waters of Mars, Victory of the Daleks is one that is very Marmite. Most people, I would say, and probably more people, hate Victory of the Daleks more so than Water of Mars. I'm not going to tell you my thoughts on the Victory of the Daleks. You're going to have to wait for my review when that comes out. I think it's later this year. But this moment is not only a badass Doctor moment, it's also kind of a badass Dalek moment, because they know him so well that they intentionally antagonize him enough to get him to this point, which is of course the plot of the episode, to get the progenitor device to activate, to recognize that he's a Doctor, to then in turn recognize that they are Daleks. So it's a badass moment, but with an actual plot reason behind it as well. And I love it.
Because sometimes this team structure isn't flat. It's mountainous, with me at the summit, in the stratosphere, alone.
Now, I mentioned it in the last video as well. that Jodie Whittaker's era, very inconsistent. And she doesn't really have that many standout speech moments, whether emotionally or realistically, badass moments. And I had to dig deep to try to remember something. Because I did want to try and at least get one for each Doctor on each of the lists if I could. And I did kind of vaguely remember this one, and I kind of had to rewatch not only the speech, but the episode as a whole to kind of re-jog my memory. And I tell you what, this one was worth a rewatch. Because one of the things I didn't like between the dynamic of Whittaker, Yaz, Ryan, and Graham, I didn't like the whole fam thing. It was too cheesy and corny. It worked for their dynamics, but it was just too samey for 2 whole seasons, or virtually 2 whole seasons. And then we get to this episode, and this is the first one where she actually kind of snaps and actually kind of bites back and says, "Why are you questioning me? I'm the Doctor. I'm the one in charge. You do what I say." And it was done with respect to her companions, but also it was her stamping her authority and going, "No, this is what is happening. This is what we are doing. I don't care what Captain Jack said. I don't care what you are saying. I am making the decision because I know what's right." And it was a dark territory to go down. And it made sense for the context of the series and what they were trying to do. Still doesn't mean that I like the series, but it made sense. And that's, I think, why, quite surprisingly, this is quite high up on this list. But it's not quite enough to make the top 3.
Okay. One more, just one. Is this world protected?
But this one comes at the end of the 11th hour, where we meet the 11th Doctor. And this is the moment where, up to that point, it was questioned throughout the episode, is he the Doctor? You were so used to David Tennant as the Doctor that it was going to be very difficult to have someone else step out from beneath his shadow. And it was a big shadow. It was a colossal shadow. David Tennant is realistically the reason that Doctor Who became as big as it has become. Not that it wasn't already big, in the UK, of course it was. But internationally, he is the reason. And so I think that a lot of people, you had this new guy coming in who was the youngest ever Doctor. And he's coming after arguably the most popular and successful Doctor there has ever been. People on screen and from an audience were questioning, who are you? And this is the moment that he just steps out from beneath his shadows and says,
Hello. I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
for me, such a badass moment.
Which leaves us with a great big stinking problem. Because I really don't know who I am. I don't know when to stop. So if I see a great big threatening button which should never ever ever be pressed, then I just want to do this.
Now, I said that there is a common link between number 2 and number 3, and it is a Doctor's first episode and their introduction to the audience. And I think the reason that I'm putting this one with David Tennant just above the Matt Smith one, because I think the Matt Smith one is probably more remembered than this one. But for me personally, I love the way that he goes on, and it's just the way he says things like a great big threatening button. You know, kind of gave me sort of Rowan Atkinson vibes with his enunciation on certain sounds and letters and things. It just elevates it. And the other thing I think that gives it this distinction is because this is the first time that you have had a regeneration for the vast majority of new fans. Because obviously Christopher Eccleston just came in the role, smashed it, by the way, absolutely smashed it. But I think to get people to accept the idea of regeneration for people like me at the time who I'd never really seen Doctor Who, you know, in classic Who. I knew of it, but I hadn't ever really watched it. So I think it was a really important milestone, again, to distinguish that this is a new actor and a new performance, and just the way he goes about it, I think, is brilliantly badass. But it's not enough to take the number one spot. So coming in at number one.
You will obey or she will be exterminated.
No.
Explain yourself.
I said no.
What is the meaning of this negative?
It means no.
But she will be destroyed.
No! Because this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rescue her. I'm gonna save Rose Tyler from the middle of the Dalek fleet, and then I'm gonna save the Earth, and then, just to finish off, I'm gonna wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky!
But you have no weapons, no defenses, no plan.
Yeah. And doesn't that scare you to death? Rose?
Yes, Doctor?
I'm coming to get you.
Now, once again, I kind of had to choose between two. And they both feature the Daleks. Because you have the one in the Dalek episode. And that was my initial one that I was going to go with. And I didn't feel it was fair to bump some of those other ones off this list. You know, to have like two that were so similar to each other. When you had the bit in Dalek when the Doctor goes,
The Daleks have failed. Why don't you finish the job and make the Daleks extinct? Rid the universe of your filth. Why don't you just die?
that is incredibly badass. But that is just a mere setup for this speech. That whole episode was a setup for this finale. It was a setup so you knew exactly how dangerous the Daleks were by showing how dangerous a singular Dalek was and how difficult it was for the Doctor to defeat a single Dalek. And so, when you have the Daleks, they've got Rose. And there's about 500,000 of them. When the Doctor could barely stop one. You are thinking, holy. You are thinking the Doctor is going to be scared and is going to have to come up with some impossible, zany scheme to rescue Rose. No. He is defiant. He is angry. He is determined. And he says that to the Daleks. That still gives me goosebumps when I hear that speech. But those are just my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with my list, or do you think other speeches should have been on this list for the most badass Doctor Who speeches? Whatever your thoughts are, drop a comment down below. Please remember to subscribe to the channel to see all of my content, like the video and turn on notifications. Until next time, my name's Kevin, I am a geek, and you have been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.